Hi, everyone. I hope you all had a good week. I'm coming to you from my kitchen because my office is upstairs, and right now my son is taking a nap. He's 1 year old. He just turned one, actually. Um, so if I was upstairs, he would hear my voice, and then he would wake up and begin crying. Um, so is the reality of being in a pandemic and not having any access to childcare. So here we go. I'm looking forward to our next class on Tuesday. And really, I just wanted to shoot a quick, short little video just to discuss the reading for this week, to kind of go over just some of the main kind of concepts, just kind of some of the vocabulary and some of the ideas before we kind of have the kind of real kind of conversation in class. So I hope you enjoyed the piece. I know it's short and it's kind of deceptive in certain regards. It's called "What is Literacy?" and doesn't really kind of answer that question until the end. Um, but it does lay out a kind of what I think is a helpful kind of framework for understanding kind of what literacy is. Because again, we talked about when we met last time. We often tend to think about reading as simply being a matter of decoding words, and literacy being kind of what makes that process happen. And really what we're trying to do is to challenge some of those reductive ways of understanding what reading is and what counts as reading and what counts as literacy. So in this piece, what Jim G kind of gets at right out of the gate, when he kind of proposes the question, okay, what is literacy? Is he starts talking about discourses. So rather than kind of answering the kind of question, right, what is literacy, and giving a definition, he actually lays out some kind of conceptual points and understandings that end up being foundational to understanding what he's talking about when he's discussing literacy. So he kind of begins by saying that we need to think about discourses as ways of kind of understanding what literacy is and how it operates and how it functions. And he presents the idea of a discourse not as simply just kind of being this conversational aspect, but what a discourse is for G is in essence an identity kit. Okay, it's a way of kind of being in the world and positioning yourself and kind of understanding, right, who you are in relation to a larger society, or a larger group, for example. And as such, the kind of the first point that he hits up about, what he means by discourses as an identity kit is that discourses are inherently ideological. It's impossible to think of a discourse as being somehow neutral. Some discourses may claim to be neutral, but are in fact promoting particular agendas, okay, or ways of understanding the world, or ways of knowing things, etc., etc. Okay, so again, we need to think of these discourses as ideological, right? We can't, like as I said when we first met, we can't think of school as neutral. All education is political. If you're learning something, if it's changing your mind, there's a politics involved in that. Okay? So we need to recognize that discourses are ideological. It's not just neutral facts being poured into children's heads, that these are imbued with forms of power as a result. So he lays that out initially as a discourse, right, as something that's ideological. She also highlights the fact that discourses are resistance to criticism. In that regard, discourses can be seen as forms of common sense. Okay? Right? Again, if something's just the way it is, or we assume that something's natural, or we assume that that's just the way things are, that means we're less likely to critique them. Okay? In that resistance to criticism, what discourses are largely doing is that they're kind of defining particular norms. right? What's normal? What's abnormal? Okay? What positions things in certain ways, for example? What positions things in opposition to other things, right? How might certain discourses frame particular kinds of standpoints that one might assume, right? A standpoint in terms of beliefs about the way the world works, or the way in which society operates, or the ways in which kind of things should operate, right? All of those kind of norms exist within a particular discourse, okay? Or within the kind of larger discourses that Jim G is talking about, okay? In addition to kind of how Jim G is talking about kind of these discourses as an identity kit, right? It's kind of like who you are and how you see yourself in the world, right? We need to recognize that discourses inherently privilege some things and marginalize others, right? And schools become vehicles for that, right? So it's not simply things just being the way they are inherently by themselves, is that we learn that certain things get positioned in different ways relationally, okay? So that some things are considered kind of mainstream and other things are considered marginalized, for example, okay? And that within all of this, within all the things that I've just mentioned about kind of discourses and identity kits, or thinking of discourses as an identity kit, we need to recognize that these are grounded in unequal distributions of power, right? Power is everywhere in the world, but power doesn't distribute itself equally. Some people find themselves in positions of authority and positions of power. Other people find themselves marginalized within that exact same system, right? So, and again, power, like other forms of capital, again, don't distribute evenly. So, my cat's meowing. I apologize for that. I will continue in just a second.